Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about verbs that tend to take a redundant lay. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I strongly suggest that you go watch the last video that I just did entitled Direct and Indirect Object Pronouns in Spanish. I explain everything there. Otherwise, there's a strong chance you'll have no idea what I'm even talking about in this video. You see, this video is a continuation of that video, kind of like a part two. For you folks who are sticking around, I'm going to assume that you have already watched that first one and you are familiar with the whole redundant lay thing. In that video, I talked about this type of construction with the verbs dar and decir, but I didn't mention any other verbs that follow this pattern. In this video, I'm going to give you a lot more of them. Doesn't that sound fun? The verbs that I'll be talking about are verbs that most often appear with an indirect object pronoun, even if the object is named in the same sentence. That's where the whole redundant lay comes from. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Le dije a María que yo llegaría temprano. I told Maria that I would arrive early. So you have le in there, which is an indirect object pronoun that really means to her, and you still have a María. This is the redundant lay. If I drop Maria and just say, le dije que yo llegaría temprano, I would translate that as, I told her that I would arrive early. Again, if that doesn't make any sense to you, go watch that first video before even moving on with this one. All right, for you folks that are sticking around, here are some more verbs that follow this pattern. In our first category, we have verbs of telling or explaining. The first one on the list is contar, and it has different meanings, but the one we'll be using is to tell someone something or recount something to someone. ¿Le contaste a Juan lo que pasó anoche? Did you tell Juan what happened last night? Sí, se lo conté. Yes, I told him. That say in there actually was le, and it turned into say, and then the other object pronoun dropped in behind it. Again, if that doesn't look familiar, watch that first video again. It's all about that. All right, let's move on. For you folks who like to use the perfect tenses, you're still going to be dropping in your indirect object pronoun before the conjugated verb. Te he contado la historia de cómo conocí a mi mujer. Have I told you the story of how I met my wife? If we want to talk about people in the third person so we can use le and still mention them in that sentence, it's going to sound kind of like this. Le he contado a usted la historia de cómo conocí a mi mujer. Have I told you, you being the formal you, usted, the story of how I met my wife. Now that's not the only use of contar. Contar can mean to count, like if you're going to count from 1 to 10. It can also mean to count on someone, you know, contar con alguien. Puedes contar conmigo. You can count on me. One of the ways you can really boost your Spanish is to learn different ways to use the same verb. Okay, I went off on a tangent again, as I often do. Let's bring it back and let's go on to the next verb on our list, escribir, to write. And it's to write something to someone. Le escribí una carta a mi hermana. I wrote a letter to my sister. So in there we still have the le, which is the indirect object pronoun, but we still have the object, a mi hermana. If I drop the a mi hermana and just said, le escribí una carta, it would be, I wrote her a letter. It's all about context here. Next one on our list is decir, which can mean to say or to tell. In this context, to tell someone something. I know I mentioned that in the first video, but I popped it in here too because I'm going to show you another usage with it. With this verb, I can make sentences like, le dije a María que fui a la tienda. I told Maria that I went to the store. Still have our le in there that's referring to Maria, and we still actually have Maria in there. Our redundant le is alive and well. Are you starting to notice the pattern here? Learning a foreign language is all about recognizing patterns and being able to repeat those patterns. One of the things I really like about the verb decir is we can actually use it with the subjunctive. I know, I'm gonna work the subjunctive into almost everything because it's so important in Spanish, right? It's just super important. If you're using decir to tell, as in to tell someone to do something, then that's going to trigger the subjunctive. So in the sentence I just gave you, le dije a María que fui a la tienda. I told Maria I went to the store. I'm not telling her to go to the store. But if I change it a little and I say, I told Maria to go to the store, it becomes this. Le dije a María que fuera a la tienda. So see this? It's fuera. That is the imperfect subjunctive, or the subjunctive we're using in the past tense. For you folks who've been asking me about the imperfect subjunctive and when to start using it, there's a good opportunity for you right there. The next verb on the list is explicar, to explain something to someone. Le expliqué a María cómo lo hice. I explained to Maria how I did it. And if I want to shorten that to, I explained it to Maria, it would become, Se lo expliqué a Maria. That le would turn into se. The lo is going to be referring to it, right? It drops in right after it. And we still have a Maria in there. But if I drop a Maria and just say se lo expliqué, we would translate that as I explained it to her. The next one on our list is recomendar, to recommend something to someone. Te recomiendo el sushi. I recommend the sushi to you. I'm recommending it to you. Recomendar, to recommend, is also a really useful verb when you want to recommend that someone does something. In that case, it's going to trigger the subjunctive. Te recomiendo que visites el museo ubicado al lado del hotel. I recommend that you visit the museum located next to the hotel. You'll see we still have our indirect object pronoun in front of the conjugated verb. We have que, and then after that, that verb is going to be in the subjunctive. If you don't know about the subjunctive, don't worry about it. That's not the point of this particular lesson. I have lots of videos on that. Our next category is to show or to teach something to someone. First verb in this category is enseñar, which can mean to show or to teach. ¿Le enseñaste a tu hermana dónde quieres que ponga tus libros? Did you show your sister where you want her to put your books? There's a lot going on in that sentence. The first part is just what we're talking about in this lesson. Le enseñaste a tu hermana. Did you show your sister? You still have that redundant le in there. If we dropped a tu hermana, it would be translated as did you show her? The next part is ¿Dónde quieres que ponga? Where you want her to put, but literally where you want that she puts your books. That's a subjunctive again, and I do have videos on that particular construction. I'll put links to them in the description portion of this video. The next verb in this category is mostrar, which means to show someone. If you're using enseñar as to show and not really to teach, then you can use either one. They're interchangeable. Le mostraste a tu hermana dónde quieres que ponga tus libros? However, if you want to translate that you're teaching someone to do something, use enseñar every single time. Le enseñé a mi hermana a tocar la guitarra. I taught my sister how to play the guitar. Anytime I do a sentence like that, somebody's likely to ask me in the comments, where's that other a coming from? That after hermana you have a tocar la guitarra. A tocar, where's that a coming from? So I'm going to touch on that right now. Let's go ahead and take out a mi hermana. Just take it out of the sentence. And our sentence becomes, le enseñé a tocar la guitarra. That a is still in there after enseñar. So the way it works is that if you have verbs of learning, aprender, or teaching, enseñar, and you're going to be talking about what you're teaching or learning, and it's a verb, you're going to put an a in between them. That's it. That preposition will always be there. Quiero aprender a esquiar. I want to learn how to ski. Quiero aprender a hablar español. I want to learn how to speak Spanish. That a is always going to be there after that verb. Let's go to our next category in the list, giving and receiving. First verb in there is our mega verb we already talked about in the last video, dar, right? To give. We don't even have to get too much into that. The next one down is regalar, which is actually to give as a gift. If you know the word gift, regalo, that should be easy to help you remember regalar, to give something as a gift to someone. Le regalé un ramo de flores a mi mujer. We would translate that in English as I gave a bouquet of flowers to my wife, but we all understand it was a gift. So in Spanish, you may see regalar. Next one on our list is entregar, to deliver. So we're delivering something to someone. Le entregaste a Juan los documentos que firmamos ayer. Did you deliver the documents that we signed yesterday to Juan? So what if you want to say, well, I sent them to him? You could do that using the next verb on our list, which is enviar, which means to send something to someone, right? So if you want to translate, I sent them to him, our le is going to turn into se. We know we're talking about los documentos, so we're going to drop in los, and then we're going to have to conjugate that verb into, past tense, the preterite, first person. I sent, envié. Se los envié. I sent them to him. Piece of cake, right? Just take some practice. The next one on our list is comprar, to buy. And this one's a little tricky because it can be used to buy something for someone or from someone. I'm actually going to have Linda help me with this one. So I went ahead and mic'd up Linda here so you can hear and ask for her assistance with the lesson. I just didn't tell her what I was doing. She doesn't get too involved. You don't get too involved in the Spanish lessons?
No, not really.
Why is that?
I don't know. I speak Spanish, and I can't tell you why things are certain ways, so can't really explain it. It was my first language.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question. How would you say in Spanish, I bought my mother a dress?
Le compré un vestido a mi mamá.
Okay. How would I say in Spanish, I bought a dress from my mother.
Le compré un vestido a mi mamá.
Those sound very similar to me.
That's why I was laughing. I just realized.
Yeah, they're exactly
Okay.
the same. So
I'd never thought about that.
So how do you know which one you're talking about?
I guess it's just from context, usually, that you realize what you're implying.
Right. So if I said something like, le compré el carro al vecino, you would think I meant what?
You bought his car.
Right. You wouldn't think I went and bought him a car.
Not usually, yeah.
So it's that kind of context.
I mean, unless you guys were like best friends and you just won the lottery, maybe.
True.
But then I would know that. So I would take it from that context and I would say like, oh, that was really nice of you, Paul.
I'm not that nice.
Very generous
I'm
of
not
you.
that nice. Would you phrase this any other way that you can think of to be more specific if you bought a dress for your mother? Or is that's how you would, right away you came up with that translation, so I'm gathering that's the most natural way.
I could say, compré un vestido nuevo para mi mamá.
Okay. And in that case, if you do that way, there is no le in front of that verb, just so you know. That's different. When we're dealing with the le, and this part is, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. When we're dealing with the le, that's going to be the le, and then it's going to be someone, to someone. When we take that out, it's going to change things. So just because you have the verb comprar doesn't mean you're always going to have le. So in that sense. And so you see, it's these little nuances of the language that can be difficult, right?
That would make it tough.
That would make it tough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your assistance.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well,
it was nice seeing everyone.
All right.
Hasta luego.
Hey, see you later. Hasta luego. The next one on our list is devolver, which means to return something to someone. Did you return Juan's book? Yes, I returned it. ¿Le devolviste el libro a Juan? Sí, se lo devolví. Next one on our list gives people some trouble, and it is robar, which means to steal. In this case, we're talking about stealing something from someone. See, in most of these verbs, we were talking about to someone, but in this one, it's actually from someone, but it uses the exact same construction. El ladrón me robó la cartera. The thief stole my wallet. This is the same construction. That indirect object pronoun, in this case, I'm talking about me, dropped in before the verb. But you may notice that I didn't say my wallet. I didn't say mi cartera or mi billetera, whatever word you like. This is the tendency in Spanish to not use personal pronouns with things that are clear who they belong to, that they belong to that person. You won't say, I put on my shirt. You say, I put on the shirt. The only time you would say my shirt is if possibly there was some issue on whose shirt it was, you know? Do you want to put on my shirt or your shirt? My shirt. Otherwise, I put on the shirt. Well, here, the thief stole the wallet. Most likely, that's my wallet. There's no reason to say mi cartera. It's just la cartera. I'll do a whole nother video about that topic. I think it's video worthy. All right, let's look at this construction again, but this time in the third person. Let's look at the thief stole her car. El ladrón, the thief, le robó el coche. Stole her car. It says the car. Why? Because it's most likely her car. If for some reason that wasn't clear, we could add it. Otherwise, el coche is fine. Next one on our list is quitar, which can mean to take out or remove something. In this context, we'll be removing something from someone. Me quitaron las llaves. They took my keys, meaning from me. And if you notice, I put las llaves, the keys, because most likely those are my keys. There's something I usually intimately have with me, you know, my pocket, something like that. Back to this. Me quitaron las llaves. They took my keys from me. Le quitaron las llaves a María. They took Maria's keys. Next one on our list is one I really like. It is traer, to bring, because you're bringing something to someone, right? You can see how this would fit the pattern. I often use this with the subjunctive, and I'll ask my wife, ¿Quieres que te traiga algo? Do you want me to bring you something? This is a verb you're going to hear a lot when you're talking about restaurants. El mesero me trajo más pan. The waiter brought me more bread. El mesero le trajo más pan a la mujer. The waiter brought more bread to the woman. See, in that sentence, we have our redundant le, which is representing the object, which is, well, still mentioned. And our next category is to hide something from someone, like news or something like that. And a verb we have here is ocultar. You can also use esconder. ¿Por qué me ocultaste que tenías un hijo? Why did you hide it from me that you had a child? Well, that sounds like very like daytime TV talk show thing kind of there. Our next category is for requests. And our first verb on our list is going to be pedir. Pedir, to ask for. This one word means to ask for. Okay, so you don't have to pop in an extra por or anything in there. Le pedí al mesero más servilletas. I asked the waiter for more napkins. And if I drop al mesero, I get le pedí más servilletas. And I know I'm talking about the waiter, I would translate it as I asked him for more napkins. If it was mesera, I would translate it as I asked her for more napkins. Another thing you can do with the verb pedir, to ask for, is to ask for people to do or not do something. And when you use it that way, it's most likely going to trigger the subjunctive. I say most likely because there are some exceptions. That's probably another dedicated video. I may never run out of things to do videos about. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Le pedí a mi amigo que no viniera a la fiesta. I asked my friend not to come to the party. Now, if I dropped a mi amigo, because I already know that's what I'm talking about, I could just say, le pedí que no viniera a la fiesta. I asked him not to come to the party. Viniera comes from the verb venir, to come, but it is actually conjugated in the imperfect subjunctive. Next verb we have in this category is prestar, which means to loan something to someone. Here's an interesting note. Spanish does not have a good verb that means to borrow. What you're doing is you're asking for someone to lend you something. There's a couple ways to do this. One common word is to use prestar, and to simply ask in the present tense, ¿me prestas el coche? Would you loan me your car? Or will you loan me your car? In English, we use the conditional or the future to express that because we're asking for a request. But in Spanish, it's common to just use the present tense as a question, as a polite way to ask for something. ¿Me prestas el coche? Would you loan me your car? No. Ya se lo presté a tu hermana. No, I already loaned it to your sister. See, all these verbs follow the same pattern. I know the pattern's very different from English, and that's why it takes some getting used to. But once you get it down, it's not going to be tough. It's just going to start coming out like this, all right? We are on our last category, and there's only one verb in this category, and this is our to win or beat somebody at something category, and we're going to use the verb ganar. So if I want to say I win or I beat you, I would say te gané, te gané. I beat you, I win. Or me ganaste, you beat me, you win. But maybe we pair it up and then we can say, les ganamos, we beat them. Well, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, just do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.